You know, I wonder if that's got to do anything with some sort of like Beatles nostalgia and all the Liverpool people think about themselves as, you know, we mean something because a lot of good people have come from here, you know. So on the other side, I find that very interesting. You know, that was the first thing I realized about the people, that they have this kind of like rock and roll attitude.
So rock and roll's kind of in the blood of the city.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it. You know, I'm not joking. I'm not bullshitting you. I'm being honest about this. I kind of, yeah.
Is this something you've noticed as well? Is there an air of like some musical presence in this city?
I mean, there's definitely something about Liverpool which is very engaging. Like, you know, as soon as you get off of the station or whatever, you are. You know, people are so friendly and they want to know, they want to have a conversation with you instantly. And obviously that's way different from London.
I mean, is that specifically a Liverpool thing or a London thing that people don't talk to each other?
I find London to be the same, you know, like because I was with a friend down the street these days and she was like, oh, people don't do that in London. And I was like, are you sure? It depends on the person, you know. In London you got a lot of people coming from a lot of backgrounds and sometimes it's, you know, people are just fed up with life, but it's not about London, you know, it's about the people that you encounter, you know. Because I've met in London a lot of like happy, honest and open people and people that, you know, they're like.
But
so I guess
have they been from London though? I wonder if that's the difference.
But who the fuck is from London in the end? You know, they're like I
am a Londoner. Mike
yeah,
is a Londoner.
You do have that, but you go for a couple generations back and
oh,
you know, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So it's not like people in London, they're like necessarily breed that, you know, you come towards north and so on, places where you probably have a bigger population that is more embedded into the culture of the country than in a metropolis, whatever, you know. But again, that's, for me, that's generalizing, you know, because it's about the perspective that you take on things, you know. It's not like, you know, I come from Romania. I just moved here 5 years ago. You probably have, I don't know, I don't want to guess because it's so complicated, but you get what I mean by that, you know. London is like a 50-50, is where you find yourself. Is also a thing with London is like the Londoner, the everyday Londoner kind of gives you an opportunity to prove him wrong, which is very interesting, if you know what I mean by that, because he's aware that he lives in the city that he is, and you never know who you meet, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a...
But you think Liverpool differs from that somehow? Like,
I guess, you know, people are less nonchalant and less...
Liverpool has an identity, and somewhere like London
I can't say that. I haven't been here long enough, you know. Of course it must have, you know, like any other city, yeah, you know. It must have, you know. But I'm not aware of that. You know, I can't.
What's your impression of Liverpool been so far in the time you've spent?
It's got wide streets and tall buildings and it's bricky and clean. That's all I can tell you. I'm being honest with you. That's all. That's kind of like.
What about these two up here? Are you Liverpudlians? Do you live here? You're not from. What are your impressions of Liverpool though? We're kind of like, come join. Give us 2 minutes of your time. Too shy. Well, come and join us later.
I thought you said we should... I don't know. I'm not going to say that. Yeah.
That's right, these guys accidentally made eye contact. Come on, sit down. You three who have got your backs turned to us. Yeah. Oh, she's pulled out a phone, pretending she's busy, so she doesn't have to come and sit down. Come and sit down. Come and give us 5 minutes of your time.
I've got to go meet a friend.
You've got to go meet a friend. Of course you do. You've got to go meet a friend. Yeah. All right.
All your friends are here.
We're your
looking
friends.
in the wrong place.
Dan, what's your impression of Liverpool? Does it have an identity?
Oh, it's a wonderful place, man.
It is
full of beautiful people.
Does it have an identity though? Has it got?
Yeah, just like, really nice people, very accepting. Yeah, it's a lovely place to be.
Yes. Very general, but very nice.
I guess, you know, you get that in London as well, but then you get a bit of a I've seen it all kind of attitude, you know. And that's the thing with big cities, with, you know, like cities where you got fucking every Wednesday, Thursday night, you know, one of the biggest bands in the world playing to you, so you can just go and see them if you've got the money, if you get what I mean. So So of course that people develop a certain sense of, you know, like irony or, you know,
Yeah,
but then you can break through that easily. Again, you know, we come into human perception and mind and time and shit, and yeah, you get me. It's how you take it, you know, it's how you take it.
So we're discussing about, does Liverpool have an identity? What about these lads who are just passing? Guys, does Liverpool have an identity? And if so, what is it? Come and give us 5 minutes. What's the identity of this city? You were just walking that way, now you're walking that way. That's suspicious. What about you guys? Do you reckon Liverpool has an identity? Yeah, you want to sit down here. Come and give us a few minutes. All right. Does Liverpool have an identity?
Sorry?
Does Liverpool, the city we're in,
Yes.
have an identity? A
course.
thing that defines it? And what is it?
It's Echo and the Bunnymen.
Is it what?
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and the Bunnymen? What about for you?
And it sounds obvious, but the Beatles, man.
The Beatles?
Everywhere.
That's what you were saying earlier.
The Beatles.
The Beatles again.
Music venues.
Music venues generally.
Taking over.
Casmire's gone. Why is the Casimir gone?
What was the Casimir?
One of the best venues in the country, if not Liverpool. Like,
That's a strong claim. What made it
Yeah.
so good?
it's because it was just, I don't know, it seemed really, like, ancient and good and amazing. Like, every time I was in there, every gig was amazing. Like, you know, and it was like 200 capacity. It was a really beautiful room.
But what was different about it? I mean, tell me about the thing itself. Like, what was it? Just the bands who played there? Was it the physical building? I mean,
It wasn't so much the bands. They had like James Bond theme nights as well. It was amazing. So they had like film school nights.
James Bond theme nights.
It was just a good venue.
The Kashmir, was it?
Casimir.
The Casimir. We had James Bond theme nights. Mikey.
I think one of the weirdest things about Liverpool is people, especially older people, have got a very sort of skewed perception of what it's like. I was doing this Talkaoke out by the cathedral, and we were talking to loads of tourists, and they're all saying the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm really surprised by Liverpool because I thought it was like. Basically, they thought, yeah, I mean, not trying to be polite, but they were like, oh, I thought Liverpool was really run down and really shit, but actually it's quite good. And that's kind of like, I think especially older people have got this idea of Liverpool that's completely wrong.
So on the poster it used to say Liverpool is actually quite good.
Yeah, it should do, yeah.
Cool. Well, while I've got you down here, I'm going to get a quick round of names so I know who you actually are. We've got
Mikey?
We've got Mircha. Chris. Chris Patterson. Nathan. Gary, and my name is Rowan. So what brings you to this venue today then? And what is this venue better than the Casimir or not?
It's not better. It's different. But It's Psych Fest. It's like I come here like every year for the last 5 years, and it's amazing.
Has it always been here, or was it in the other venue?
I didn't come the first year, but I think it was here the first year, and then they had one building for it, so it wasn't like every building, but it's grown so much. So it's amazing.
And is that indicative of like culture in Liverpool and sort of this kind of thing? It's like the things actually expanding. Someone earlier was telling us about how things are becoming less London-centric because it's just too expensive and stuff here is a lot cheaper to put on a big sort of event here.
But I also think Liverpool's an inherently creative place, and it's not just about the music. It's, you know, in a way the music kind of dominates, but there's so many, the art, but just the people themselves are just creative in their day-to-day lives. There's something there's a spark, put it that way.
I mean, are you guys from Liverpool, or and do you feel that? Do you echo this that that people are just intrinsically creative here in their everyday lives? You mean like when they're putting money in the parking meter, they do it with a flair? Like what's the?
You go to an open mic night or in Liverpool, it's like a full-on like proper gig. Like it's like you've paid like £10 to go and sit, but it's an open mic night. That's how good musicians are here.
Venues as a whole in Liverpool actually look after bands, so people get paid and people get looked after rather than travelling 10 hours to London and playing to no one and promoters just being generally shite, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that does sound quite different actually. Okay, interesting. And so what brings you to something like this then? If there's so much going on, how come you chose to come to this instead of one of the many other possible things that might be happening in...
just this weekend or...
sure, why not?
We just wandered through this area and it looked amazing, but as a whole, why I came here is because it's very multicultural. What do you think? Like, there's people from all over Europe and all over the world here, so it's amazing. It brings people together, psychedelic music, I think. So amazing.
And you what?
So it needs a smoke.
You need to smoke.
This guy, keep on rocking in the free world.
All right, well, come back and so where are we going to take this? What I'm curious to like find out what it is about Liverpool that's like generates this creativity. Like why?
It's just fucking awesome, man.
But what is it like? What does the creativity create Liverpool? Does Liverpool create the creativity? Where does it come from?
Friendly people, man. Just friendly people.
Just friendly people.
I mean, I think the thing about Liverpool.
It is a bit wet.
I'll get a new one.
Yeah.
The thing about Liverpool is that it is a very friendly place, and that makes people feel safe. Like everyone in Liverpool is trying to crack a joke all the time, and the reason they can do that is because they're not going to get like shot down for that. They're actually going to get encouraged, and I think that's what makes it creative.
Why did they get shut down?
Yeah, why would people get shot down for trying to make a joke?
Yeah. Why did they get shut down for it, in your opinion?
I mean, I think sometimes they get it slightly wrong, you know, like they try and make a joke, but it's actually the joke is about the person that they're trying to make a joke to, or something like that. Or, you know, people just don't want it to be, they want it to be a bit more serious or something like that. Or, you know, you can't joke about, I don't know, genocide or
So you're saying basically
racism.
what makes Liverpool Liverpool is everyone has an edgy sense of humour here.
No, I mean, it's not that. It's more the kind of encouraging of the sense of humour.
Is it a city that breeds comedians then? I mean,
yeah, that's the thing that East Europeans have, an edgy sense of humour. You know, like here you go somewhere and you make a voice, and I was like, oh, that's racist, because they're, you know, imitating. I was thinking about this. You're imitating a Chinese, but wait. At the end of the day, you know, I might have friends there from that country. I might, you know, the fact that I'm doing that stuff, it's not detrimental to their culture. I don't think. Sorry?
Does that stop it from being racist? Then?
Stop who? Me? No, if I'm being accused.
If impersonates someone from another racial background,
just
because they have friends of that culture, does that make it not racist?
No, I think it's how that person's attitude in life, you know, is towards that group of people. That's what dictates what that person actually is. Things like this, that is what the other person next to you is making out of what you're doing. So it's not what you're thinking, it's what that other person wants to judge you as being. So it's a very common thing that happens in London, for example, you know, and probably that's where, you know, people make the distinction and so on. But there is a way to actually put that into, you know, down to place, I guess. You know, you can explain those people that, you know, that's your insecurities about yourself and not being able to relate to other people around you that make you accuse others of being non-politically correct, you know. That's what I think about that kind of stuff. But, you know, I like, you know, when people have an edgy sense of humor, you know. I come from a crazy family, so, you know.
With an edgy, crazy sense of humor.
And now I'm going to go and have a crazy, edgy cigarette. It's been a pleasure, guys, and I'll definitely...
Well, do you want to give us a final thought before you go?
Always fart in public. Never be afraid of farting in public. As loud as you can. Makes people laugh.
Very relevant, thank you.
I was actually, where was I? I walked past someone who did a massively loud fart. Yeah, I mean, it was outdoors, so it didn't really, you know, I wasn't affected by it smell-wise. It was quite funny, though, yeah.
Specification, outdoors, not inside.
Okay, so no farting here, people.
It is an enclosed space, and there doesn't seem to be much ventilation. So.
Yeah. Look, we've got maybe some people over here.
I was going to say, we've got some seats now. There's plenty of space to come and sit down and join us and talk about whatever you like. I feel like we do need a new topic. I mean, you know,
farting we can talk about.
I mean, maybe not farting. Like earlier, we were talking about the identity of Liverpool, but then that kind of got a bit, you know, a bit heady. I want something different. What we're going to offer? Do you want to come and sit down and give us a new topic? Mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. All right, come and sit down. Andy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so come on down. I remembered your names, which is worthy of some credit. So come and join us. And these two who are standing, come and grab us. Mr. Checkset and Pop Art Dress, which was fantastic. So around the table we have Mikey, we have Andy, we have Mark, we have Paul. Paul and
Sarah.
Paul and Sarah, and I'm Rowan. So welcome. So what are we going to talk about? Let's kickstart a new topic of conversation. You were about to say something, so it's going in your face.
That thing there is probably a talking point.
What is that thing?
What is that thing?
What is that thing?
What is it?
And what does it do? Does it do anything?
I'm still recovering from it, really.
Recovering, so it's a negative thing.
Yeah. You can recover from good experiences, can't you, as well?
Don't know.
I think you can. You know what I mean? I think you can. Yeah.
Well, what does it do that is good or bad or neither? It's just what's its function?
I don't know. We sort of bonded, didn't we, in a way that we've never bonded before, because we've never sort of looked at each other through a...
I mean, I was glancing over. I didn't say anything too, you know, whatever happening.
So Sarah's husband's here, so maybe we'll have another go on that when he's not around, maybe. But we'll see.
But so what happens? I've seen these people. They like put on headphones. They're sticking their face in it. What's going on?
I think it's translating your breathing into light.
Okay.
So
what? So wherever there's a light, that's because someone's just inhaled or exhaled or something, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But then why is that a thing to recover from? That sounds pretty benign. What's
You've not tried it though, have you?
I mean, I haven't.
You shouldn't judge people until you've sort of tried it yourself.
I mean, does that make sense? Yeah, I suppose. I mean, should you try something before you judge what it might be?
The recovery sort of requirements. You know, you need to get on there.
Okay. Yeah. Have you guys tried it? Mikey, have you tried it?
I've not tried it. I'd quite like to try it. I wonder if it's got sort of different colours. So I'm wondering if that's like something to do with the flavour of your breath. That it comes up with different colours.
Well, it's just going to tend towards beer throughout the day, isn't it? I mean,
I think it's to do with the personality of your breathing.
The what?
And that changes the colour based on the
personality
spectrum
of your breathing.
Yeah.
How does it detect your personality?
It's just very high tech, like future. It just does.
Mark, you look absolutely gobsmacked. What's
Yeah, it may be testing what you have eaten today.
Testing what you ate today?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can see the coffee there. Can you see it?
The coffee?
Yeah, coffee, and this one is breakfast tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that nuanced? It can detect if you've drunk a coffee. Well, Kira here is the custodian of this thing. Do you want to come and tell us? We're talking about your giant like sandworm cigar breathing tube thing, and we're trying to figure out what it is or does or something about it.
Can it detect what you've had to eat or drink?
So Mark and Andy were kind of saying, well, like it can detect if you've had coffee or tea. Oh no, sorry. Mark was saying that. Andy was saying it can detect your personality based on your breathing. What does that mean? And is it true?
Who said that?
These two. Blame them.
Oh, interesting. Can detect your personality in what way?
I just feel like maybe how deeply you breathe or how often you breathe has something to do with your not personality, that's the wrong word. Yeah. Yourself, yeah. Something about
So something to do with your emotions can be detected from your breathing. So if you're breathing heavily, you're probably quite frantic or heightened in some emotional sense.
Well, breathing is very dependent on being, so it is kind of very self-expressive in terms of your emotional
so worst case,
well-being
we've figured
as well.
out a machine that can detect whether you're alive or dead. But more in a more nuanced way, what's going on here?
The idea is that it visualizes breathing and creates awareness to your breathing. Like most of the time, we're not actually aware of a very elemental, action that we have to sustain to be alive. And to create awareness of diaphragm breathing, as normally people they can breathe with the chest, which is very bad for you. Actually, it creates a lot of cardiovascular issues and stress.
What do you mean? Do we not all breathe? I mean, that's where our lungs are. Don't we breathe with our chests?
No, actually, the idea is to breathe with the diaphragm. So by expanding the diaphragm, you inhale the most amount of air, so most amount of oxygen, and that creates like a better stimulation of the blood flow of your parasympathetic nervous system rather than sympathetic, which means basically sympathetic means you're stressed and parasympathetic means you're relaxed. So the more you breathe through your diaphragm, the deeper, the slower your breath, the more you can embrace the experience.
This? I mean, when you just like breathe, when you don't think about it, you just breathe. How do you change what you're breathing with? Mark, come and give us a final thought if you're running away. But yeah, I'll come back to that. Let's get a final thought of Mark first.
Yes? What? I don't have idea right now. I just want to look at what you're doing right now.
Oh right, sorry, I thought you were running away.
I'm going to have a test afterwards, yeah.
And then you can report back on.
I will report back, yeah.
On if you've changed your breathing from your chest to your diaphragm. Okay.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I will test that whether I can find my inner myself also. Okay. Okay, see you.
All right, come back and tell us how it was. Okay. Sorry, Mikey, and then I'll come back to
Well,
Kira.
I mean, I'm just wondering if it is a good idea to be more aware of your breathing, because it's a bit like being like aware of your tongue or something like that. Then when you start being aware of it, you're like, oh, I'm breathing. Am I breathing right? You know, when actually your body's just doing that anyway, and it's kind of nice to think about other stuff rather than like your actual breathing.
So you're saying, is there a reason why we don't think about this stuff in the first place?
Yeah, there might be a reason.
Imagine how it would be if you had to think about your digestion and it didn't actually just happen. You had to think about it and go, all right, here's the sugar, glum, 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 glum. What? You may be like, you're fretting Mikey out a bit, like by making him think about breathing.
It's true, that makes people sometimes, rather than conscious, it makes them self-conscious about them breathing. That is what I found. However, I think it is something to overcome, because I think when we're put in a spot, we often feel questioned, and it's for us in our own transformative action to overcome those inner difficulties of accepting something and let go of the experience. So that is to bring awareness to the breath, to make sure that you're aware you're breathing, and then relax into the experience. So it's a kind of transformational experience.
So it sounds like this is actually part of something bigger then. So it's not just about telling people how to breathe. It sounds like it's tying into something that's larger.
Of course. I mean, it was inspired by my first spiritual experience, so it is pretty big.
Which was what?
Experience of non-duality, that we're all connected.
And how does this kind of like connect with that idea?
So the idea is by seeing something that is an internal process externally, you can you create a connection between the external and the internal, and between one person and the other person, and the bigger visualization of this installation is a 8-people dome, which I'm already actually building, almost finished building, and it's 8 people who, by synchronizing their breathing, which they see in LED lights, they activate the dome to breathe in response. So the idea is to create a collective experience through symbiosis.
Wow, okay.
And altered state of consciousness, of course.
Talking of making connections, we've just made some new connections here, so let's say hello to our new friends. So, by the way, this is Kira, who's responsible for this device behind you, which senses your breathing and alters the lights based on your breathing, and based on the feedback lets you connect with the person on the other end of the machine. In a nutshell, probably slightly more nuanced than that, but that's my limited understanding of it. But yeah, let's do a quick round of names. So, what's your name?
Steve.
Steve?
Matthew.
Matthew.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Paul.
Paul, do you want to come and join us as well? No? Right. Come on. You're standing there, you're listening, and you don't have to join in. You can just sit and listen. Yeah, you can sit and drink and listen. All right. And Mark's run away, but we've got Andy, Kira,
Mikey,
and Mikey. So yeah, welcome to Talkaoke. Have you felt connected with something today? We're talking about sort of like connections between people based on I suppose technology more than anything else. But like, have you been especially connected with something?
I think there is a sort of physicality, and I have to say I just recently tried out yoga, and I got this sense of, and they actually told me that I was breathing in a really bad way, so maybe I need to go on the machine. But you do get this sense of like being connected with the universe when I was doing I've not really tried the meditation before, and it's certainly a sense of being connected with the wider universe.
How did it make you feel, like doing that? Did you actually feel something, like describe the feeling?
I felt quite relaxed, really. Because when it's like for example, like when a motorbike goes past and it's like, you sort of feel it's kind of, that's just part of the universe. You don't feel annoyed by it. Do you know what I mean?
So you kind of learn to like let go of what the reality a little bit.
A different focus.
A different focus. Do you have feelings like this when you're engaging with different things like crazy psychedelic experiments or yoga, that you're sort of feeling like disconnected? No, not disconnected. Connected, but in a different way. You're focusing on other things.
I live in London, so I had a phone call from work today when I was in Liverpool, and suddenly I was completely kind of like reconnected with work. And trying to describe where everything was in work to someone who uses my workspace on a Saturday. Yeah.
Do they know today's Friday?
So, yes. Sorry. But it was, you know, they were talking about what was going to happen tomorrow.
Gotcha. So like a physical, like in the same way that this physical device connects people, you were using a physical device to be connected with someone else, just albeit in a very different way.
Yeah, and I really wanted to get away from that, and then suddenly I get a phone call. But then it was suddenly, oh, I have to describe everything that I see every day, and it got, oh no, you have to go here and you have to go around there.
What would happen if instead of the phone you use this like device which translates your breath?
I've no idea what that is.
Well, from what I gather, I'm still slightly fuzzy if I'm honest, but it seems to translate your breath into coloured light. And so could you describe what you were trying to do, or get this person to do, the other end of the phone, using your breath communicated as light? Would that help, or would that just like...
No, breath is sound, really, on the phone.
Oh, hang on.
I don't think light would help.
You don't think light will help? You could show them the light.
Yeah. I'll be interested to try this out, though.
Yeah, I'm quite curious as well.
I saw this thing once which was like a sort of cuddling device where it was a sensor on a chair, and you could, so if you were, this may not be appropriate for a work colleague, but you could sort of sit next to somebody in a different physical location and sort of feel them move around, and you'd feel it on your chair. So it's like a sort of like a kind of remote chair sensor.
So like a EE fondling.
I'm guessing that's people who have more kind of e-conferences and stuff where they don't have to be next to the person that they work with. Maybe, I don't know. So they don't have to be next to their fidgety habits and feel them. And I don't know.
How much telepresence is too much telepresence? That sounds like a lot of interaction. I mean...
But I'm just thinking for that, maybe this device could also be a kind of breathing portal where you're actually breathing with somebody on the other side of the world and feeling, you know, if you could chop that in half and put one side in Brazil or, you know, somewhere else, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Hang on, what's...
I have discussed this idea before, and actually one of the ideas is also like to create something that individuals can use at home as well, and then they can connect to other individuals which they don't see over the web, and they expand their light and design through this connection. Yeah.
So you'll be able to have a shared breathing experience with other people.
We're going to come back.
Sure. Do you want to give us a final thought for now about anything, stuff we've been talking about, stuff we haven't been talking about?
I think we need to move the conversation on from breathing, really, because I am becoming very anxious about my own breathing situation.
We need a breath of fresh air. Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's a bit like when you sort of think too much about walking down the stairs, you start like tripping up because you're thinking about it too much.
So when you concentrate too much on something, something overwhelms you, and you get sidetracked and confused. Do you ever think about something too much that it sort of trips up your thought process?
Yeah, definitely all the time, especially
such as
when I'm talking to someone.
When you're
especially
talking?
a new person. This microphone's definitely making it a lot worse as well. Like, I can hear myself. Just like communication breaks down a lot when you just think about what you're trying to actually say. So you just need to just be yourself and go.
So you prefer to just kind of wing it?
Yeah, just say what you feel.
Looks like you're about to speak. Do you want to give us a final thought on anything we've talked about, on communication, on breathing?
On breathing? Well, I'm going to have a go on this, so then maybe I'll come back and
feedback and tell us what it was like.
Keep breathing.
Keep breathing.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, if we stop breathing, bad things I'm sure will happen. I'm intrigued. The more I hear about this, the more I kind of want to try it out, because I still have no idea what it actually does.
Well, maybe try it out and then we'll come back.
Yeah. Let's get to a point where we're going to have a little bit of a break or something, and then let's try it out. Or maybe we'll try it out later tonight, and tomorrow's session can discuss it and other things. Yeah.
Going on this one.
Oh yeah, so what was that one all about?
Well, she hooks up an EEG machine to your forehead.
EEG?
So electric, something to do with your brainwaves anyway. And she scans in your brainwaves, runs it through her program. And
so that machine over there scans your brainwaves?
Basically, yeah. Okay. And then creates the audio and the visual in front of you. It's amazing.
Okay, well that is interesting. So that machine scans your brainwaves and changes the sound and picture depending on what you're thinking. I mean, does that sound quite dangerous? Would you want what you're thinking projected on a screen for all to see? What would happen if you could see someone else's thoughts?
I think it would be interesting to see your own thoughts because I think sometimes we don't know what we're thinking, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you think people could use it as like a way of, like, well, I suppose communicating, like communicating more directly. You could see what someone else is thinking. You wouldn't have to use words so much.
That would be really nice, because some people struggle with words more than a few other people, but they might have to talk anyway. So it would help. Yeah, but it's got like this you can feel the impulses behind your eyes as it's going, and like you really want to open your eyes but you're not allowed to, and the light's really bright, so that thing like flashing in front of them. Yeah, it's like a meditative experience, and I think this is probably one of my favourite rooms now in the whole world. Definitely. A lot going on.
Sorry?
There's a lot going on in this room.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in this room. But I'm intrigued, like, you were talking earlier about how sometimes when you think too much about speaking, you kind of like trip up on your words. Would this, if there was some like future version of this, would it help, as Mikey was saying, by like translating your thoughts straight to some communicative medium?
Maybe sometimes, but I think there is a reason that your brain trips itself up sometimes, because there might be an adverse thought coming in, and if everyone could see that on a display, that wouldn't be helpful. It would be sometimes, maybe for specific people, people who struggle with that, but not as a mass form of communication for everyone, I think.
So you're saying it kind of keeps you in check. Your mind, by sometimes tripping itself up, keeps it in check so that it's not just running away, giving like a random stream of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think, it goes back to the breathing thing. Like, even though it could be awkward thinking about your breathing or thinking about your thinking, actually it's a good sort of thing to think about, if that makes sense. But as long as we're not thinking about it all the time. So it's like, for example, for me, I was always very, very bad at running until I started thinking about how I was running, and then actually, it's quite hard to think about when you're running, but eventually you'll run better and not think about it. If that makes sense.
So kind of. I mean, yeah, so thinking about something that you're not good at in order to get better. I guess it's one of those things that sounds very obvious when you say it, but do you think just not enough people do it? Not enough people think about what they're doing? They're just in autopilot, and that's true with conversations.
Definitely, especially with conversation.
Especially with conversation. Do you reckon this conversation is in kind of autopilot? Is it just? Are any of us actually processing it, or
not for me?
Not for you. You feel like you're on top of it and you're processing every kind of word that's been said. I mean, what about you, Andy? Do you think?
I constantly look like I might be processing it, but sometimes I just forget to and I slip out. But I bring myself back. I try really hard to do that, because I do think people
come join
as individuals to be listened to.
Do you ever feel like you're just kind of on autopilot and aren't really like taking stuff in? We're talking about this very conversation, and are we just like on autopilot, or are we actually thinking about what's happening and giving it some like due thought and so on?
Yeah, I think I'm on autopilot 80-90% of the time, because you're doing the same few tasks.
What do you reckon is a healthy balance? Like, is 90% of the time a healthy way you spend on autopilot?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
Well, so you reckon you're on 90. If you were to put a percentage on it, what percentage autopilot, or what percentage of the time are you on autopilot?
I reckon like 60% throughout the week, and then on the weekend 75.
All right,
maybe.
so you're a little bit more on it during the week at work and so on, but it's at the weekend you get to relax a bit. What about Mikey?
I think I have a hard time going onto autopilot, which is why it takes me twice as long to do everything. So I'm thinking about it too much all the time.
Overthinking. But so put some numbers to it. What percentage of the time are you on autopilot?
Not very often.
All right.
Not very often. About probably 25% of the time.
25%. Okay, so it's kind of almost like the opposite of Andy here. Interesting. But you feel like 90%. Are you quite happy with 90%? Like
not really. No. I mean, I wonder if the meaning of life. Presumably, you say Buddha had 0% autopilot. He knew what he was doing all the time. Possibly. Whereas I feel like I've got a job, I've got 2 kids, that's a big part of it. Having children, you've got to do everything for them, so that's a big part of it. And then the 10% is thinking, talking like this, reading a book, listening to music, listening to psychedelic music, being in the zone, and that's only 10% of my time. But when I was a younger man, it was probably a lot more. Yeah.
So do you reckon it changes with time then? You mentioned
I think it's actually from my experience, very inefficient to when you try and think about stuff all the time. It's quite a time-consuming process.
To actually just like stop and think and worry about everything.
Yeah, and actually be in the moment and not be, if you're on autopilot, especially I guess if you've got kids and you're trying to get them to school, get them fed, whatever, you've just got your body just does it. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, it gets in the way of things.
You just gotta get on with it. But it's like be like what a lot of the Eastern philosophy says is be here now, be in the present, be doing, which is exactly what you're saying, not being on autopilot, which is great, and I think that's wonderful. But if you work in a call centre, if you work in a shop, if you not like doing these things, or you got kids, it's very, very, very difficult to do that. So don't know where to go really.
Is it necessarily a bad thing though? Like, Mikey suggested that like if we think too much, it takes longer to do things. But does it maybe get us to a better place? I mean, what's the pros and cons, the long-term pros and cons of dwelling too much on any one thing?
Always late, always take too long to do stuff.
But so what? I mean, why does that matter?
Oh well, that's how I prefer to do it. That's how I do it.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
But there is
you're quite content with being a bit like.
I'm not content. I'm very frustrated because it does take me like 2 to 3 times as long just to do things like washing up or tidying things up or writing an email. Just too focused on every single word.
You should be living in a cave, meditating 14 hours a day and eating a bowl of rice, because that's, I don't know you obviously, but that's easier to do that than it is to actually live your life. But unfortunately, 99.9% of us have to live a life and earn a living and get on with the world.
It depends on like what your aim is. I mean, if your aim is compatible with wasting 3 times as long on an email, then is it a problem?
It's not wasting, because that email is very well crafted, so it's not wasting the time, but it's just, in a way, could be considered misuse of time.
Do you feel like you're making the most of your time, or do you think too much and not really get much done? Like,
I'm definitely not making the most of my time.
Why not?
Waste it.
In how so?
By being lazy and destructive.
Lazy and destructive.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit of a departure. I'm intrigued though. But
I mean, I would, because I have been consider myself lazy, but then I realise I'm not being lazy. I'm just thinking about stuff too much. And that actually can look like laziness, but it's actually just a.
And Jade, Jade, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a similar feeling, or?
Yeah, a problem with thinking too much. Like you're not really in the present, so you're not speaking to people, and people think that you're just out of it, which means that you just, you're not thinking about anything, but it's not the case.
So by thinking too much, people think you're actually not thinking at all. It's like they don't see the wood through the trees. Andy?
I've had a lot of situations where I've been, say I'm quite a little bit high, sitting in a friend's house with some from people who don't know very well, and they'll start talking about, maybe it is paranoia, maybe it's not, but and there's times where you just seem to be out of the zone, and they're like, oh my god, what's this guy doing? And you just look over, and they know that you know what I mean? But because you can snap out of it instantly, and sometimes when you are daydreaming and drifting off, you don't actually realise it, but you are paying attention to a lot of what's going on. So it's
you get into a trance with thoughts, definitely, and I always find when someone says something that affects me the most, I never say anything because I'm just thinking about it, and by the time I've thought about it and thought of what to say, they're already gone. So yeah.
It's just like the rules of conversation as well, and as you say, in social situation you have scripts you have to stick to. We all have to do certain things to talk, and in fact this thing is breaking those rules because we're all getting much deeper. I don't know any of you people, we're talking much more deeply than we would do. If I met you, I'd say, who are you? I might ask you what you do for a living if I was being really boring.
Yeah.
But it's all
but around here the rules are a bit different, and we could just jump
So-
straight to things like, do you spend too much time thinking? Yes, evidently. No. What's your name?
Maya.
Maya. Cool, nice to meet you. Oh, what's your name, by the way? Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Jake.
Jake. So we've got Jake, we've got Andy, we've got Mikey, we've got Jade, Rowan, and Maya. Do you guys want to come and join as well? We're talking about thinking and talking and communicating and every other thing that we do with ourselves. And so one of the topics, one of the threads flowing around the table right now is, do we spend too much time thinking? And what are the positives and negatives to that? Some of the negatives are that, like, Mikey takes 3 times longer to write an email than a normal person might because he spends too much time thinking, whereas Jake sort of thinks that actually maybe it's kind of what you're thinking about. If you spend your time in a cave just meditating, which arguably is another form of thinking, then actually that's quite a productive way of spending your time. You're kind of in just a different space. Tell us your names. Kieran. Jules. And goodbye, Jade. And
Richard.
So we've got Kieran, Jules, Maya, Richard, Mikey, Andy, who's going to come join us in a bit, and Jake. So yeah, do you feel like you spend too much time thinking?
Well, certainly with emails, yeah. Thinking where this finger should go. Should it go? Because I can't type for toffee, so I think where my finger goes.
So a little bit too much time spent thinking about where email goes. What about yourself, Kieran?
Arguably, I don't spend enough time thinking. I act quite impulsively.
Okay, interesting. So you're like the opposite end of the spectrum to Mikey here, who spends too much time thinking about most things.
Yeah.
So if you two were to make decisions together, I wonder what would happen.
I feel if we were together, we'd be a perfectly functional team.
Right. But I'm intrigued. Well, maybe we should give you a decision to make. I mean, I don't know, what would be one? I mean, I'm kind of feeling like another beer, and there are basically 3 options: lager, IPA, or ale. So maybe between the two of you could make that decision.
You see, I'd act straight off the top of my head, and I'd go for an IPA.
Interesting. Mikey?
Well, I'm just thinking about what I would want, which is a lager, but I know that you would prefer something with flavour for some reason, rather than a nice, cool, refreshing lager, which is, in a way, talking about thinking, the lager drink is a drink that allows you to think about other stuff because you're not thinking about things like flavour.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting logic there.
I agree.
Okay, well there we go.
That perfectly surmises the 2 differences between us.
But it's interesting that 2 very different thought processes came to a similar conclusion.
I prefer port. I'd like a nice glass of port.
Do they sell port here?
It'd be nice if they did. I haven't seen it on the menu.
Well, maybe shout down Ollie over here. Never mind, he's gone. Ollie, I'm not entirely sure of his function, but he or to the camera. Yeah, do you want to give a bit of feedback to the camera?
Yeah, port.
Port.
Next year, port.
I mean, we were talking earlier on about kind of the opium dens of Victorian times, and I think port would go much more with that kind of like opium den sort of feel than a lager in a plastic cup.
Yeah, kind of get the logic there. Do you think it's quite like does an event like a psychedelic music festival have an identity drink in the same way that like Reading is like lager? Does this place scream port?
Are you recording this?
It's wait, what?
Are you recording this?
Are we calling this?
Yes. Are you recording it?
Oh, are we recording it? Sorry. Yes. Here, Mikey. Mikey can explain in more depth.
So we'll be famous. We'll be famous.
We'll be famous. I mean, it depends how many people see it, I guess. I mean, what is fame?
Would you like to speak Richard?
Yeah, Mikey.
You're famous already. It's happened.
Right, what is it? Famous just by being on camera?
Just by being.
Just by being, you are already famous.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to unpick that a little bit. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just think about it. You know, it's a miracle that you've come to be here amongst all the cells, the gametes that could have been there, all the different people you could have been. To be a person, you're already famous, I would say.
Yeah, like it's not as if you couldn't look at me and think I was dead. So, like, you all know that I'm here, and everyone who looks at anyone just knows that they're alive unless they're not.
So to be alive is to be famous?
Yeah, because you're known. I mean,
then what's the point of fame?
To a degree.
I'm very confused.
Fame means someone knows you and you don't know them.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So fame means somebody. Fame means you know somebody knows you, but you don't necessarily have to know them.
Through your reputation or your whatever.
Maya.
Have you got any acid?
I don't, I'm afraid.
Does this thing work?
Yeah, what do you mean by this thing? I mean,
does it go up and down as well as round and round?
Go up and down. So I think you said, does it work? And I was like, well, it depends what our function is. I mean, we could make it go up and down, I suppose, if we have some bricks. But why do you want it to go up or down?
It looks amazing.
Yeah. Well, so what you've stumbled across, by the way, is Talkaoke. Have a look at the website. You can sort of learn more. This is a pop-up talk show where we can talk about anything, which is why we're not really, trying to force you to talk about one particular subject.
I think you're missing some major sponsorship because this is like a big polo mint, and you're sat in the middle of a polo mint.
Yeah, you've got a very good point there.
That's when I'm not on mic.
Yeah, Mikey. Well, Mikey here is kind of like the custodian of this table. So why doesn't it say polo on it, and why don't we have sponsorship?
It kind of works. It works like this. I'm not that into mints either.
Are you that minted? You don't need the sponsorship.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I thought that double entendre was going to be more appreciated. Never mind.
Yeah, mints are good for the brain. Mints are good for concentration. Mints are especially good when driving long distances.
Because of what we were talking about earlier, the thinking about thinking, they keep you concentrated so you're not worried about other things.
Well, extra strong mints just keep your mind or your mouth really hot, so, keeps you awake basically, stops you crashing.
Do you want to give us some final thoughts before you disappear about extra strong mints or bye-bye?
It's hard to have conversations like this because most conversations are pretty free-form, right? They're not really scripted or prodded, so...
I mean, that's kind of the idea. We don't really have a plan so much. We just kind of go where we want to go. And on that note, where do we want to go? I mean, we can talk about extra strong mints and driving. Would you have enjoyed your drive up to Liverpool today from London if you'd had some extra strong mints?
I like to actually. I know I didn't do it this time. I like to drive hungry. So I think you drive better when you're hungry.
Better or faster?
Because you're like a wolf. The hungry wolf is more focused, is sharper, because it hasn't had a meal. I think we talk about drinking and driving, but eating and driving I think is also problematic because it dulls your senses.
Interesting. Hey mate. Oh, hello. New face. There you go. Do you want to give us a final thought, Jake?
Nothing is coming to me. I'm going to go and watch the telescopes.
All right, overthink it. What about Kieran? Do you want to give us a final thought?
I don't really like polos.
You don't really like polos?
What about fruit polos?
Yes, I'll go with fruit polo.
Go with fruit polos. Well, welcome back to the table, Dan, and our new face is... Stephanie, welcome Stephanie. So we've got Dan, we've got Mikey, my name is Rowan, welcome to Talkaoke, a freeform talk show where we can talk about anything. And it feels like we can...
Come on, come and sit down.
Yeah, if that wasn't a ringing endorsement, what is? Come join. So what are we going to talk about? Mikey?
I don't know. You know, if you're going to ask me, then I'm going to go for the more philosophical things, because that's just what I like.
More philosophical
things. In the words of Bruno Mars, that's what I like.
I'd like to ask someone that's at the moment living in the EU how they feel about everything that's happening in this country right now.
Deep. So what do you think about?
Because you're thinking about moving to Manchester. How do you think it's going to affect you?
Well, where do you live at the moment, Stephanie? And where?
At the moment, I'm living in France.
Okay, you're living in France, and you're thinking of moving to Manchester.
Yeah.
And you're worried about everything in this country. No, you're not. Right. Okay. But and Dan is kind of curious about what you think of this country.
I love this country.
Hence, you're wanting to move to Manchester.
Yeah.
Why are you wanting to move to Manchester?
For the music scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair play.
It's wonderful music.
What is it about the music scene of Manchester that attracts you so much?
The psychedelic music, the bands. You can find a concert every night, and people are really nice.
Soup kitchen.
But what about Liverpool? Why do you think Liverpool is going to be better?
Maybe Liverpool's better than.
Liverpool's better than Manchester.
The wrong word there.
Yeah.
It'd be just as good.
Just different.
Different.
Right.
In a better way.
Different in a better. Oh, I like that. That's very political. Different in a better way. So there we go. So Stephanie, what's your name? Sorry.
Gary.
So Gary's saying, well, maybe consider Liverpool over Manchester because it's different, but in a better way.
Maybe. Yeah.
If I was going to start from the beginning, I would start in Liverpool.
If you're just going to move to the UK,
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would start in Liverpool. I wouldn't start in London. I wouldn't start in Manchester. I would start in Liverpool.
Does this give you pause for thought? Would you think of moving straight to Liverpool rather than Manchester?
Maybe I should get to know Liverpool a little better.
Is that what you're going to do this weekend?
Yeah.
What would sway your decision? So you said it was all about the music and so on. I mean, if there's obviously a lot of music here this weekend, is that going to influence your position?
It's a long day.
This weekend I saw Is Bliss. They were a really good band.
Fair do. So what about you guys? Come and grab a seat. We've got one voice for Liverpool, one voice for Manchester. What's your name there?
Hi, my English is not very well.
Don't worry about your English. We'll worry about that. What's your name?
I can speak French.
Okay.
Maxime.
Maxime, welcome to the table. We've got Mikey, Maxime, Stephanie, Dan, and Gary, and we're talking about. What are we talking about? We're kind of talking about what's better, Manchester or Liverpool, in a nutshell. But basically, what is the good question?
Who's more psychedelic, Manchester or Liverpool?
Okay, so that's the topic of conversation. What is more psychedelic, Liverpool or Manchester? And is that a reason to live in one or another? And Stephanie seems intrigued as to which city she wants to move to.
I think the psychedelic element is in your head anyway. So wherever you are, it's a question about how psychedelic you are.
Well, where do you think is the most psychedelic place then? If it's just in your head, where for you is the most psychedelic place?
To me, it would be a countryside.
The countryside is more psychedelic than the city. Yeah. Well, what about you guys? Where is the most psychedelic place for you?
Streatham.
Streatham is quite psychedelic. I've had some very strange experiences in Streatham. What about you, Gary?
Grangemouth.
Where?
Grangemouth.
Grangemouth?
Oh yeah.
Where's that?
It's on the River Forth. It's a massive oil refinery. It's very psychedelic.
And it's very is that from breathing all the fumes from the refinery?
Oh yeah, both.
It's the skag capital of Scotland, isn't it?
Oh, the skag capital.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, all right. Mikey, you had your hand up.
No, all the lights and everything in the refinery, I've been past there, and it is. There's so many, and there's all smoke going on. It is It's quite an amazing vista.
Yeah, I'm sensing a Mordor or something kind of more Blade Runner. Okay.
More Blade Runner.
More Blade Runner than Mordor. That's
What's more Blade Runner?
Grangemouth, the oil refinery, at night.
Grangemouth is more Blade Runner than Mordor.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting one. Stephanie, what if you couldn't move to Liverpool or Manchester, but you had to choose between Blade Runner, like so LA in 2019, which is weirdly close, or Mordor? Blade Runner or Mordor? If you had
Blade Runner, yeah.
You'd rather live in Blade Runner.
It's sexier, isn't it? It's sexier, Blade Runner.
What's sexy about Blade Runner?
It's much hotter, man. Like.
Yeah, that's much more elegant than that. I don't really get Lord of the Rings. It's one of the things, it's a bit like why all these people are so interested in music. I don't get the point of Lord of the Rings and why people, you know, get so excited. The film is so fucking boring.
How dare you say that? Yeah, no, you're right.
I know it's alright, but you think he's right. Oh, hang on.
I agree with you 100%.
You're not Lord of the Rings?
No, I think he's right. The
You think
film
he's right?
is fucking boring. There's only battles, battles, and battles.
It's just like the history of England. It's just a bit meh.
Meh.
So you'd much rather live in Blade Runner?
Oh yeah.
Well, who wouldn't do Harrison?
Yeah. Much as Game of Thrones, is that in the same ballpark as?
I don't know.
Yeah, is that psychedelic?
Is Game of Thrones psychedelic?
No.
He was hot.
Maxim looks just so confused. What the hell are these people talking about? What have I walked into? All these crazy lights and people sitting and staring at glowing boxes, and now we're talking about Game of Thrones, and this is Game of Thrones psychedelic. Is Game of Thrones psychedelic? Come, Joe. You've been pressured into this. You're kind of here whether you like it or not. Would you rather live in Game of Thrones or Blade Runner?
On a playground?
You what?
What?
Would you rather live in Game of Thrones world or Blade Runner world?
What's the second one?
Sorry?
My Little Pony is nice.
My Little Ponies.
Where are you from?
This is getting
Germany.
strange.
Okay, so we have another German.
Beat
each other.
Oh, okay. Nice.
There we go. Stephanie is thinking of moving to the United Kingdom, and she's torn between Liverpool and Manchester. And for some strange reason, that translated into a conversation on where would you rather live, the Blade Runner world or Lord of the Rings world, which is apparently too boring. So now we're thinking instead of Lord of the Rings, maybe Game of Thrones versus Blade Runner world.
I don't know the second one.
Game of Thrones. It's like
I know
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Okay.
But like that. So Game of Thrones is basically Lord of the Rings, but 21st century. I don't know. It's like got dragons
probably
and
Game of
imps and stuff.
Thrones. Yeah. Because I'm in this generation.
Yeah. You'd be more Blade Runner, more tech.
I think you don't. Is it Blade Runner? But do you know Blade Runner? Okay, good. And you'd rather live in Game of Thrones?
She'd rather live in Blade Runner than Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Do you like Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's nice. It's beautiful. It's New Zealand.
So, some people around the table think that Lord of the Rings is really boring, but Blade Runner is really interesting.
Yeah.
Are you of that opinion or a different one?
Mountains and stuff.
Yeah.
The mountains are nice.
So you're more about the nature than the buildings and the constructed human environment?
No, I like the nature. That's true. It's a good point.
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Lord of the Rings is New Zealand.
Well, that's a good point. It's New Zealand versus like.
Would you like to live in New Zealand?
LA or something?
No.
That's it. So it's New Zealand.
New Zealand versus LA. Okay, maybe make it a bit more down to earth then. New Zealand or LA? Stephanie, does that change your opinion of where to live if it's New Zealand versus LA?
I'm going to LA next year in March.
Wow, so you will actually be there in Blade Runner time?
Yeah. Well, I don't know it for now, but I'm very curious of LA.
Mikey, if we take out the Lord of the Rings element, it's just New Zealand or LA. Does that change your...
Well, they're actually paying people to go and live in New Zealand because it's so far away.
Well, that sounds alright.
I mean, it's a beautiful place, but it's just so far away.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Weren't you like in that part of the world just not long ago?
It's like, do you want to live with a lot of people or a lot of beauty is the question, really.
Ooh. So if you want to get away from people, maybe... Do you want to get away from people?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes.
So you'd rather live in New Zealand because you want to get away from people?
Yes.
What is it about people that you want to get away from?
Maybe selfishness?
Selfishness? Is everybody selfish?
Not everyone
just
I
where
know.
you live?
Not everyone I know.
Right.
But some people.
How does that manifest? Like, what has made you feel that? Well, like, have you come here tonight and gone, wow, everyone here is really selfish?
No, everyone's really polite here. Everyone says sorry, and like Everyone's really polite here. Yeah.
So does that in any way change your like view of
people?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good experience.
Mikey.
Someone was saying the other day that we're all competing for resources. But I can't. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, Dan. Go for it.
As very nice German girls, how do you feel about the rise of German nationalism, which seems to be happening? Oh, we don't want to talk about that. Okay.
Wait. Sorry, I missed. We don't. Wait, Dan. Or Dan and/or Stephanie, backtrack. I actually kind of missed what you just said there. You kind of got interrupted.
How do you feel about that? Because it's happening, isn't it? There's a movement.
It's scary. Very scary. Very scary and frightening. And
Sorry, can we backtrack for 2 seconds? What movement is scary? Or that I missed what we were actually. The rise of German nationalism. Okay, yeah. As citizens,
same as we feel in this country.
Sure.
It's weird. It feels more.
Come grab a seat.
It's happening.
We're talking about German
It's
nationalism.
happening in this country, which is a really fucking bad thing. But it's funny. We only seem to see it on the news when it regards other countries. So like,
Sure.
now there's a big thing about Germany. The rise of nationalism and the far right. You know. So.
I mean, do you worry about it as presumably citizens of Germany? Like, is it something keeps you awake at night?
yeah, no, not well. I can still sleep, but like it's frightening.
I guess I didn't mean too literally, but yeah.
But yeah,
it's happening here.
Yeah, exactly. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
Oh, wait, Gary, do you want to give us a final thought? Are you just grabbing a beer? Cool. All right, mine's an ale. Well,
I mean,
he's not going to bring me a beer.
Where does it come from? All these nationalists. Like, I mean, I'm more worried about what's happening in the UK, but there are all these. Where is it coming from?
I can't relate to it at all because I feel like a citizen of the world and I don't understand this. I don't know.
Do you echo this as well?
Yes, echo.
Do you reckon it's just one of those things? I mean, is that what something like this festival is about in some way or another? Everyone here feels like that? Do you feel like you're not a citizen of the world or a citizen of Britain or what?
I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. I'm part of the world. This is how people should be. It's very nice. You know, people are happy and friendly to each other, and you talk. That's how it should be. Not being arseholes and pointing fingers and blaming people. Just you sort things out yourself. You know. That's anarchy, innit? That's anarchy. It's true anarchy. You form groups and you address problems and you solve them.
Do you share this as well, Mikey? Are you?
Well, I mean, I just think it's a bit. I think it's. I know I was asking the question. Now I'm going to try and answer it. I think it's people that don't feel part of it. They don't feel part of anything. So all they've got is a country to feel part of because they don't have that sense of belonging to anything else.
So is it a case of if people were brought into the fold a bit more, into contemporary society, they'd perhaps loosen up a bit and not give a shit so much about their flag?
Some people don't want that, do they? That's like, you know, they don't want it because they're fearful of the openness that people show. You know, they're cosseted. They live within themselves.
About comfort as well. Everyone is scared to lose their comfort, and afraid of change as well. Yeah.
Speaking of change, I wouldn't mind jumping out for 5 minutes if
Right,
we feel like
jump back in. Yeah, no problem. Let's give Rowan a big round of applause, though. We're going to keep this conversation going. We've only got a limited amount of time left on the table of chat before we go and get smashed.